There's something sitting beneath the surface of this energy right now that I want to acknowledge before we go anywhere else. It's not quite confusion, and it's not quite grief, it's that very particular feeling of being disoriented by someone you thought you understood. Like the ground has slightly shifted under your feet and you're not sure if it happened yesterday or months ago, or if you've just finally allowed yourself to feel it. That's what I'm sensing as I sit with this collective energy today. And if that resonates with you, if you came here carrying that quiet, unsettled feeling, I think this reading is going to speak to something very real in your life right now. Take a breath. You're in the right place. Because what I'm picking up immediately, and I mean immediately, this is one of the first things I felt when I tuned into this energy, is that someone in your life has recently shown you a version of themselves you genuinely did not see coming. And I don't just mean a small surprise. I'm talking about something that made you stop and question your own perception. Like, did I miss something? Was I not paying attention? Or have they actually changed? That distinction matters, and I think it's at the center of everything we're going to explore today. There's a part of you that keeps replaying moments. Specific moments. Conversations. Things they said. The way they looked at you, or, maybe more importantly, the way they stopped looking at you the way they used to. And you're holding those memories up to the light and trying to find the point where it changed. When did this person become someone I don't fully recognize? Here's what I want you to understand as we move through this: you're not imagining it. You didn't make this up. You're not being oversensitive or projecting. Something is real here, and part of this reading is going to help you sort through what that something actually is. I'm feeling into the energy of the person at the center of this situation, and there's a fire here. A genuinely intense, almost consuming energy. This isn't a passive person. This is someone who, on some level, has always had a kind of internal heat to them, a drive, a hunger, a private sense of their own importance or destiny. And for a long time, they may have kept that relatively contained. You might have seen glimpses of it. Maybe it's one of the things that drew you to them in the first place, that sense that there was more to them than met the eye, that something powerful lived beneath the surface. But something has shifted. That fire, that hidden flame, it's no longer hidden. It's coming out. And when something that was once suppressed or private suddenly begins to express itself openly, in broad daylight, in front of everyone, it changes the entire dynamic. It forces everyone in proximity to reckon with something they perhaps weren't fully prepared for. And that's where you are right now. Reckoning. This is interesting, because what I'm seeing now feels almost like a transformation in progress. Not a gentle one. Not the quiet, graceful kind of change that people make over years of careful self-reflection. This feels more like, and I want to be precise here, this feels like someone who has decided to stop apologizing for who they are. Or who they believe themselves to be. There's a kind of shedding happening. A radical, unapologetic shedding of an old version of themselves. And on the surface, that can look like strength. It can even look admirable, in certain moments. Growth is real. People do evolve. People do outgrow versions of themselves and rise into something more aligned, more authentic. That's genuinely possible, and it's genuinely beautiful when it happens. But here's what I need to sit with, and what I think you need to sit with too, because the energy is nudging me in this direction, is the question of who gets left behind in this transformation. Who pays the price for this rebirth? Because when someone rises into themselves in a way that burns bridges, dismisses others' feelings, or begins to behave in ways that are shocking or even hurtful to the people around them, that's not just evolution. That's something more complicated. Have you noticed that their change, whatever it looks like, has come at a cost to you? Or to others close to them? That their becoming has required a kind of unbecoming in how they treat the people who loved them in the old version? I'm hearing something like, and I don't always know exactly what these messages mean, I just pass them along, I'm hearing something like, not all fire warms. Some fire only burns. Sit with that for a moment. Now, for those of you, this is a collective reading and not everyone's situation will look the same. Some of you may be watching someone you're romantically involved with go through this shift. Others might be watching a close friend, a family member, a colleague, someone you trusted, someone you were emotionally invested in. The person can change, but the feeling beneath all of this, that unsettling sense of shock and disorientation, that's what we share collectively right now. And underneath the shock, I feel something softer. Something that's hurting. Because here's what I don't want to skip over, you gave something to this person. And I don't just mean time or energy, though you gave those too. I mean something purer than that. Something more vulnerable. There's an energy here of someone, and I'm sensing this could be you, who offered a kind of quiet, genuine devotion. Not a loud love. Not a performative love. A steady, sincere, perhaps even slightly self-sacrificing love. The kind of love that doesn't ask for much but gives a great deal. The kind that trusts without needing constant reassurance. The kind that sees the best in people and chooses to believe in it. And I want to say this gently, because I feel some of you might not have heard it recently, that quality in you is not a flaw. It is not the reason this is happening. Your tenderness did not make you a target. Your openness did not make you foolish. But I do feel that it may have made you more vulnerable than you realized, and that the shock of what you're now witnessing is hitting harder because of how earnestly you believed in this person. Does this feel familiar? That sense that you held them up, maybe even protected them in some way, emotionally, energetically, maybe literally, and now you're watching them move through the world as if that never happened? That's a very specific kind of pain. It's quiet. It doesn't announce itself. But it sits deep. The energy shifts here. Something important is coming through. There's a theme around perception, around being watched, observed, seen in a way that feels almost uncomfortably public. And I think this connects directly to the title of what you came here for today. This person is showing a side of themselves in broad daylight. Not privately. Not behind closed doors. Publicly. In front of people who know both of you. In ways that others are noticing and reacting to. And that public dimension of it, the fact that it isn't something you can just quietly process between the two of you, that adds a whole additional layer of complexity to what you're feeling. Because now it's not just about what you see. It's about what everyone else sees too. And there's something almost humiliating about that, isn't there? Even if you can't quite name it. Even if humiliation feels too strong a word. There's something about watching someone you cared for, someone whose reputation you perhaps quietly protected or defended, now conducting themselves in a way that makes people around you raise their eyebrows. There's something in that which forces a confrontation with your own narrative. Because you had a story about this person. And now that story is being rewritten, publicly, and you weren't consulted. At first this looked to me like a situation where someone had simply outgrown a relationship or a chapter of their life. But now it feels more like, there's more to this than it first appeared. What's coming through more strongly now is something about ego. About power. About someone who has, perhaps for the first time in their life, gotten a taste of something, attention, success, freedom, influence, validation from a new source, and it has changed how they move through the world. It has given them a confidence that is tipping, or has already tipped, into something less graceful. Something that doesn't account for the feelings of others the way it once did. And here's the psychological layer beneath that. When someone finally experiences something that makes them feel powerful after a long period of feeling small, or unseen, or constrained, that shift can be intoxicating. It can make old relationships feel like limitations. Old loyalties can feel like weights. And the people who knew them before, people like you, who saw them in their vulnerability, who were there when they were still becoming, those people can start to feel like mirrors they don't want to look into anymore. Not because you did anything wrong, but because you reflect a version of them they are trying to leave behind. And sometimes people choose to leave the witnesses behind too. That's a hard truth. I know. But I feel like you needed to hear it stated plainly. There's something rare and precious being highlighted in this energy that I feel belongs to you. Not to them. To you. And I want to make sure this doesn't get lost in everything else we're exploring today, because I think it's actually the most important message this reading has to offer. What you carry, that quality of genuineness, of depth, of being someone who actually feels things fully rather than performing feelings for an audience, that is genuinely rare. And I know that in a world that rewards spectacle and surface, that depth can sometimes feel like a disadvantage. Like it leaves you more exposed. Like it makes you too easy to read, too easy to wound. But the energy keeps bringing me back to this, your capacity to feel this deeply, to be shocked by dishonesty because you didn't expect it, to feel grief over this because you actually cared, that is not your weakness. That is your most protected, most sacred quality. And no situation, no person, no public performance of someone's reinvention gets to take that from you. You are not naive for having trusted. You are not broken for having loved well. I want to pause here for a moment, because something just came in that I feel needs to be said. I'm hearing something like, and this one is strong, they are not more real now than they were before. They are just less afraid of how they look. And I think that's significant. Because part of what can be so destabilizing when someone we love behaves in a way that shocks us is that we begin to wonder, who was the real version? Was the person I knew the real one? Or is this new version the truth finally revealed? And what I'm feeling, what the energy is suggesting, is that it's not necessarily either. People are layered. People contain multitudes. The person who was gentle with you was genuine in those moments. The person who is now behaving in ways that shock and hurt you is also expressing something real. But that doesn't make both versions equally worthy of your trust, your time, or your grief. You are allowed to grieve the version of them that felt true to you. You are also allowed to acknowledge that this current version is showing you something important about who they are capable of being when accountability is removed, when comfort is replaced by opportunity, when they believe no one is watching, or when they stop caring who is. Because there is something about visibility here. About exposure. About the way people behave when they think they have an audience that affirms them, versus the way they behave when they're just with the people who have always known them. And what you're witnessing, this shocking, public behavior, is in some ways the clearest information you have ever received about this person. Not the most comfortable. Not the easiest to integrate. But the clearest. Because people tend to protect their image with those who have not yet fully seen them. They perform their best selves for new audiences. And they can sometimes take for granted the people who already know their flaws, their history, their humanity. You may be in that second category right now. And while it's painful to be taken for granted, there is also something clarifying about it. The performance has dropped. And you're seeing what's underneath. The question is, what do you do with what you see? The energy is shifting again here, and this is interesting, because what I'm starting to feel now is something more territorial. Something possessive, almost. And this might apply to the other person, or it might apply to dynamics between multiple people in this situation. There is an energy of someone staking claim. Drawing lines. Marking territory in a way that feels disproportionate to what's actually being claimed. Like the intensity of the possessiveness doesn't quite match the actual value being protected. And this is where I start to wonder, and tell me if this resonates, whether some of what's being displayed, this big, public, somewhat shocking behavior, is actually rooted in insecurity that has been dressed up as confidence. Because very often, the loudest performances of power are compensating for a fear of powerlessness. The most aggressively territorial behavior often comes from a place of deep, unaddressed fear. Fear of being exposed. Fear of being left. Fear of not being enough. I'm not saying this to excuse the behavior. I want to be clear about that. How someone processes their fear matters. Whether they turn it inward into growth or outward into harm, that's a choice, even when it doesn't feel like one. But understanding this might help you hold the situation with a little more clarity. Not more compassion for behavior that's hurt you, but more clarity. More ability to see this for what it is, rather than what it appeared to be. For those of you in a romantic situation with the person this reading is about, I feel something specific coming through for you. There's a sense that intimacy has become complicated. That the closeness you once had, or thought you had, has been disrupted by this new version of them that's emerged. And there might be a part of you that's wondering whether to hold on, to believe this is just a phase, that they'll come back to themselves, that the person you loved is still in there somewhere, or to begin accepting that something has genuinely shifted. I can't tell you which path is right for you. The cards don't do that. But what I can tell you is that the energy around this feels like it's asking you to stop negotiating with a version of the situation that no longer exists. The question isn't whether they used to be different. They were. The question is whether who they are choosing to be now is someone you can walk alongside with your full heart intact. With your self-respect intact. With your sense of your own worth intact. Because here's what I keep returning to, you have a rare quality. And rare things deserve rare treatment. They deserve to be in environments where they're recognized, not overlooked. Where they're honored, not taken for granted. Where they can be exactly what they are without shrinking, without apologizing, without questioning their own value because someone else is too distracted by their own reflection to see clearly. There's more to this than it first appeared. And that final layer, the one I've been circling around, is actually about you. Your growth through this. Not theirs. Because however painful this situation is, however disorienting and shocking and grief-inducing it has been to watch someone you care about become someone who shocks you, there is something being forged in you right now that is genuinely significant. Something that could not have been forged any other way. I'm thinking about the way certain precious things are only formed under pressure. The way heat and time and compression create something that could never have come from comfort. And I feel that quality in your energy right now. Not the polished final version, you're still in the process. But the process is real, and it is working, even on the days when it feels like it's just hurting. You are learning to trust what you see, not what you hope to see. That is not a small thing. That is one of the most profound forms of inner growth a person can experience. To love someone and still be willing to see them clearly. To grieve without distorting. To feel hurt without rewriting history in either direction, neither making them a villain to protect yourself from feeling the loss, nor making them perfect to protect yourself from feeling betrayed. That kind of clear-sighted, honest grieving is rare. Most people can't do it. Most people tip to one side or the other. And the fact that some part of you is trying to stay in that honest, clear-eyed middle place, even when it's harder, says something profound about who you are. The energy keeps repeating a message and I want to pass it along. What was shown to you is a gift, even when it hurts. Not in a dismissive, everything happens for a reason kind of way. In a very concrete, practical way. Because information is a gift. Clarity is a gift. And the truth of who someone is, shown to you without filters, in broad daylight, in front of everyone, that is some of the most valuable information life can offer. You didn't get to choose whether to receive this information. But you do get to choose what you do with it. And that choice, that quiet, personal, internal choice about what kind of relationships you are willing to build and protect going forward, about what you will and will not accept, about how you understand your own worth, that is where your power lives. Not in changing them. Not in being witnessed by them. Not even in being understood by them. In yourself. In the clarity you are slowly, painfully, beautifully gaining about what you actually deserve. I want to bring this home gently, because I feel the energy starting to settle, like the reading has said most of what it needs to say. If you are sitting somewhere tonight wondering how to move forward, not dramatically, not with big decisions necessarily, but just emotionally, here is what I'll leave you with. You do not have to perform being okay. You are allowed to be exactly where you are in this, which might be somewhere between grief and relief, between love and disappointment, between the person you thought they were and the person they've revealed themselves to be. All of that can be true at the same time. Emotions don't follow logic. You can miss someone and also know you're better off with the clarity of who they've shown themselves to be. Both things can live in you simultaneously and neither one makes you weak. Be gentle with your heart right now. The fact that you feel this deeply is not evidence that something is wrong with you. It's evidence that you are fully alive. That you don't love casually. That you don't invest lightly. And that when something turns out to be different from what you believed it to be, you feel that difference all the way through. That's not something to fix. That's something to protect. Protect that. Protect the softness that hasn't been hardened by this. Protect the part of you that still believes in genuine connection, in real honesty, in people who mean what they say. Don't let this situation be the thing that closes you. Let it be the thing that teaches you to choose more carefully who gets access to what's precious in you. Because you are the rare gem in this story. Not a prop in someone else's transformation. The center of your own. Whatever comes next, whether reconciliation is on the table, whether distance is necessary, whether you're still figuring out what you feel, trust the part of you that already knows. It's been trying to tell you something for a while. And it's not wrong. You are seen. You are not alone in this. And you are going to be okay, not the performance of okay, but the real thing. It's already finding its way back to you.